All right, so now, all right, so I'll use this one. I'll use this setup from now on, as you would say, this setup. Setup B, this rig. I'll use this rig from now on. Pillows, big laptop, plugged into blah, blah. Okay, yes. Okay, so here we are. C, the letter C. I picked Cuomo.
Woohoo.
Cuomo brothers.
The brothers, and yes, the eminently
Yeah.
marryable Andrew Cuomo, especially. He's very marryable.
Is it
eligible?
marryable?
Eligible, I should say.
Is he? Is he not married? Oh.
Well, I don't know actually that, but everybody, that's the talk. People want to marry him, right?
Oh, I see. Yeah. I got what she's saying. Yeah, he's everyone's like Facebook boyfriend or whatever. You know,
Women want to be with him.
Politician.
Men want to be like him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or men want to be him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So tell me why you picked that. Or yeah.
Well, he's the leader who has emerged. I think the most trustworthy, consistent, calming, dedicated, important leader of this epidemic in the United States. Pandemic worldwide, right? If it's one country, it's epidemic. But anyway,
Yeah.
so yeah, he's at the epicenter, New York State, but really it's about New York City.
Mm-hmm.
De Blasio is the mayor, but we're not hearing as much from de Blasio that is comforting. Cuomo comes on and says, well, I've asked the mayor of New York City to figure out how to open streets, and they haven't been able to do it. There's disagreement, and he says, and I've given them 24 hours, and if they can't do it, then I will. And then the next day, all of a sudden, like 12 hours later, it's like plans to open
Right.
100 streets. And so on. So it's like, I don't know what de Blasio is doing, but he's clearly not as effective for whatever reason. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm really just not listening. I'm listening to Cuomo. And that's why I feel as the steady hand. He feels like a steady hand.
Absolutely. I think people will be looking back at different press conferences these two men gave over this period of time and just looking at differences in messaging, even at like a linguistic level and stuff, because they were both at one point or another, or have been fraught, right, in their political careers. And I don't know enough to really go into that, except to say that, like, if you ask somebody about Cuomo,
Right.
in January, there would be one thing, or maybe let's just be safe and say in November. But you're totally right. I couldn't agree more. I watch it every day while I'm working now. Did you see it yesterday?
Yeah, yesterday and today.
Yeah, yesterday was especially heartwarming. He had a bunch of masks people had sent.
Oh, from the farm. Oh, that's right. All the masks. And the day before that was the farmer who sent one mask.
Yeah, and he sort of made a collage board of several, sparking on Twitter a lot of criticism of like, why aren't you distributing those? And like, that's very silly, because masks are actually not that hard to come by right now anymore. But I have tried hard to stay off Twitter, and I'm doing a shitty job of it, but I'm trying hard. Yeah, it's true. So how does, okay, I guess here's the question for me then, like, what is something about the way that Andrew Cuomo appeals to the head and the heart that works so well for you? Or do you think that just works so well? Because it's a little bit of both, right?
He combines facts with personal stories, personal experiences that everyone can relate to. And so that's what you've just said. How does he appeal to the head and the heart? Well, he does both of those at the same time. Just like we all do in our everyday lives. We say, well, how much money have we got? And what are we going to spend it on? Head and heart. How far are we from, Aunt Polly's place? Can we get there tonight? Or are we too tired? And how are the kids? And do we have enough gas? Head and heart. So I think he just does that every time. So.
Yeah, I agree. That's the farthest distance you can travel is between the head and the heart. They say.
Yeah.
But I think that there's a certain kind of very practical magic in doing that, because what he sort of does, and it's all genuine. It's not like this is not a technique you could just pick up, right? But I think that by lucidly, let me say that, lucidly presenting facts and statistics, which are sort of facts plus a little something else, and then marrying those to, yes, personal experiences, that totally does part of it, but also marrying facts about the world to a deep sense of empathy. And it's a very interesting. So, like, I was watching these press conferences. Really, that was going to be my source. I felt really good about it. And then one day, I forget when it was, he sort of it was right before I think he started messaging about how the new normal should be, it's not going to be going back to the old way. It's going to be going to a new way, right? But he said something almost off the cuff. And he's like, can you even imagine the kind of psychological trauma, the post-traumatic stress that people are going to have as a result of this? And I don't mean to do that imitation, but it's hard not to. and I was like, dude, to see an Italian man of that age, you like talking about this, and not like some other leaders saying like, it won't happen to me, but and I just thought that was like, and I was like, you had my interest, now you have my attention.
That's interesting. Because that seems sensible and obvious to me and to a lot of people, but you're absolutely right. It is to me, because I've been through all of that, and I'm, a woman, and I've been in all of those support groups.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. An Italian man of that generation and of that avocation and career path and whatnot, it's clear, it must be, it's evidence that he listens to learn. He's willing to learn. He must have learned that from someone.
Exactly. That's exactly it. His reform, he performs the act of having listened and understood something. Yeah. Because facts are invisible, immaterial things, and so are feelings and thoughts, right? And yet, by showing that, like, here's a true thing about feelings or mental state, illness even, and here is a true thing about the state of New York, you impose truth, you sort of connect the two into a bond of truth that you trust very well, I think, which is neat.
Yeah.
What a great guy.
Yeah.
What a great guy.
Okay, so let me just stop here. I think I need to plug my computer in because it's about to...
Okay.
It's flashing.
No problem.
So let me just find that.
So what's your C?
All right, my C. I was a little... I was conflicted. I wanted...
That's a good one in itself, so...
It is good, right? Oh, shit. Okay, so maybe you can help select. So the other one was calling or calls, which is sort of just a way, is like my cheap and dirty way into talking about video calling. I cannot wait to get to Zoom,
Well, you better keep uploading these episodes.
Well, then we're definitely doing DMs. Anyway, let's say calling, because I read a neat article and it sort of validated or helped me understand something that I've been experiencing. So,
go ahead.
Yeah, so anything that sounds particularly intelligent that I say will probably go back to a Times article that I think was in the paper on Sunday. And It was called Why Zoom Sucks, or it's terrible. No, Why Zoom is terrible.
Okay.
And and I thought that was going to be a comparison against some other tech. It's not. It was
it was in the Times. It would be much more.
yeah. Sunday Times, it's easy breezy.
Well, Sunday Times, not New York Times.
The New York Times. Sunday
I
paper.
get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I don't know.
I
Anyway,
always
but
fuck things like that up. It sounds good, and then I'm like, and then I confuse.
It's all good. This is, you know what? Like, this is the mini series. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Okay, go on.
So, So I think I even might have talked about this in the last on ARB, but I had been describing having video conferencing or Zoom fatigue, and it's not because I'm on it at work, because those calls are very abrupt and to the point, and it's not because I don't like to hear from people, but there was just something that I don't like. I can be on the phone for, if it's a easy and nice conversation, I can be on the phone for hours and not really even notice it too much. It's very close to being, it's as close to being in a room with somebody as you get. It's, in fact, I think much closer than Zoom for reasons that I understood now. And so I had brought that to my doc, and he's like, yeah, there's sort of a performative aspect to being on camera. I was like, oh, that's not true. So anyway, I kind of felt it was a little deeper. And so this article talked about how, and it was essentially leaning on work and new thinking from a bunch of cognitive and behavioral scientists and maybe some sociologists, people like that. So dig it, right? The way that video is compressed, encrypted, decrypted, uncompressed, presented to you all in quote unquote real time, naturally, depending on the connection, but always in some form, introduces glitches and artifacts.
Oh, yes.
You know, like little pixels that shouldn't be there, or somebody's out of sync.
Yes.
You know, this we all understand, right? And some, it used to be much more that you'd get that even with the voice, like get a robot voice all of a sudden be like, raw. But it's still the case pretty much with these video services, even if it's hard to tell, like even if it looks good. And the article went on to talk about how like these distinctions, the brain can recognize these abnormalities or these anomalies on a pre-conscious level, right? So even if you don't necessarily see them, you're processing them. And because people are prediction machines or predictive engines, we generate expectations, and constantly in a video call, if my expectations visually are not met, I am wondering why my brain is in overdrive processing. And when I say expectations, I mean something as simple as your face will stay your face.
Yes, right.
Or as complicated as like mirroring, right? So mirroring is the thing we do when we talk to somebody, where you talk and I sort of like nod my head, maybe. I confirm that I'm hearing you, things like that. And especially if you're unsynced or the image is tough, you do not get the same experience of mirroring at all. And so that's a big one too, right? People look for that validation, not just that their message is sort of lands, but that it's being even heard.
Right, and I mean, you can do that on Zoom, but you have to really consciously maintain your engagement with it. Most people are looking at some other device. They're looking at their phone or reading something, or just looking around at everyone's pictures and going, images and going, oh, look, you've got that on the wall. What's going on there? Oh, what about your hair? Whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But even, and I think that's definitely the biggest one. I think when this all kind of got underway and people started writing about calling, again, letter C, they were saying like, here's a way to make your conversation more authentic is to really make sure that you're not dicking around on your phone or anything else while people can see you. Because like, although you might be doing that on the telephone, like no one can tell if you're just listening. It's like a clean fake on the phone, right? So there's that. But I guess this article maintained in a big way that no matter how much you try to stay attentive, if there are any kind of little tiny issues of, again, syncing or visual artifacts, the brain and therefore the mind, and then worst of all, the heart will not necessarily process this conversation as an authentic as authentic as it could have been. Something's off. Bloomberg called in, like, whenever these government folks call into other government folks, I mean, it's going to be a nightmare, right? But like,
he was reading.
Bloomberg.
Bloomberg was reading, and so it just made it worse.
Yeah, and his face was just a weird sort of angular, raisiny thing. It was like
it was the vulture. Wrong color. It was a different color from different tone, different shade from Cuomo. That the light was different. It was very disorienting. Yeah, you're absolutely right. This is very interesting. And at the end of
it is
12-step meetings that we have on Zoom now, we try to do a group prayer or a goodbye or a closing whatever together. It's terrible because then the little delays, the time shift, just the minor, it just is incredibly obvious when you have 50 or even 6 people trying to say something together at different volumes, and it's just awful. It's really upsetting. It is does not serve the purpose that it does when we're all in the same room.
And that reflects back on everything that happened in that room in a way, doesn't it? Like, if all of a sudden you've built up a great chunk of like
shared moment,
energy and belief, and then you can't put like 10 words together with other people, it's like, I guess that chain is a little weak.
I guess this wasn't as real as I thought. What do I do?
Right.
It's like, okay, bye. Now I'm all alone again. Yeah, it really doesn't.
Yeah. As if somebody just yelled psych.
Yeah, right.
I had one experience that illustrates also, I think, the difference in that this was a business call, and people are trying now to combat various things by just being a little wacky sometimes. And I guess this is wacky for where I work, right? And some person who was part of the meeting, relatively small one, they have like a very well-trained pup, right? Little pup. And they just had the pup right in front of the camera where they would have been, and left it there for the duration. They spoke from off screen, and at least at first, like, all my mind needed to know is that was a dog, and that was confirmed. And I guess I didn't expect it to be listening or reacting, but like, yeah, people's faces, the face is a playground.
The face is what? Yeah.
A playground or a carnival or, whatever you want.
And there's a service, and I've just remembered this now. I want to do it now. You can rent a llama for your Zoom call for that very purpose. Yeah, llama. And I love llamas. An alpaca, a llama, whatever.
So somebody somewhere puts a camera on a llama?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. So I've done something that I've beta tested with friends, but I have yet to bring it into the workplace. That may happen this week. You can tape yourself on your computer using if you're using a Mac, like photo booth app, and you can tape yourself just kind of sitting there nodding. And then when you put on in Zoom virtual background, get in front of you load that as the movie, and it plays. Exactly. And as long as you're wearing kind of the same thing and can jump into that chair if somebody calls on your name, there's probably, you can be like,
right. You can just take off the background. Oh, what's that? Yeah. Oh, just turn off the camera, turn it back on. Yeah. Oh, shit, that's hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah, I changed my shirt.
Yeah, or you can, exactly. A lot of people have very similar T-shirts or shirts, they used to wear to work, similar colors, whatever. You can have a few of them.
Yeah. I rely on these digital glitches and artifacts to to make it more okay what I am dialing into meetings wearing these days. Because I believe that on camera they just show up as a solid color t-shirt. And, to the naked eye, if you're wearing it, it's a solid color t-shirt. It was a solid color t-shirt several days ago. And now it's messy. That's what I'm saying. Maybe they're on it. So the point is, it's all good.
Well, I habitually, I've always appeared on Facebook Lives, 10 a.m. these days. Everybody on my page, Facebook Lives, free psychic mediumship readings.
Well, tell
my
them
page
what your page
is Reverend Wild. Yeah, you can just search Reverend Wild. On Facebook. And so that hasn't changed. So I've always liked to present well, as if I'm in an actual real life. So
of course.
That hasn't changed for me, but I know it has. For a lot of people, which is interesting, because it actually would take you less time. I mean, it would actually, you actually have more time to get ready because you're not going anywhere. So it's actually kind of interesting that people have fallen into not.
Yes, and it's, somebody said about wearing a mask, and it's not good to repeat yourself only one episode later, because I think I said this too, that wearing it is not just about the health benefits and whatnot, right? It's about signaling socially to other people that things are not fucking normal. Things are different. Things are weird. And in that way, maybe you end up generating an acknowledgement of that, and that leads to behavioral change in people. They don't do things they normally would, right? That's a cool, and that somebody said that a while back. And so the opposite effect, or a similar effect, is sort of at place in my office work, where everybody's like, all right, let's all be on the same page about wearing sweat clothing.
Oh, the opposite happened. I think
which I cannot
there was some complaints from judges and magistrates and whatnot that lawyers were showing up on they use Skype, I believe, in the courts. They were showing up not in suits and ties and as they normally would. They were showing up in t-shirts and jeans to conferences, and they were not happy with that. So
this ties in very well to the next to the episode of Miracles in Manhattan that we recorded, have yet to release, but the next one that will come out, which has to do with
images. Let's do that, dude. Let's get it up.
Okay, this way of talking between you and me is not for other people. That's just for private yelling. Okay. Yeah, we'll do it. Anyhow, so
all right. So good.
Yeah, check out images more.
Well, this was fun.
And I think I'll be returning to Zoom, in other ways too, because I think it's a deep well, and not just sort of the, because I think I'm curious to think about how people in relationships and in family, how it works
that's very interesting. I hadn't thought about it that deeply. But you know what? It really is.
Yeah, it's very. I mean, the big difference, and this might be a nice segue, is that like I can come off a half an hour telecall, whatever service you want to use, with somebody. Right, we're not being sponsored.
We could be. Hello.
Out there, we could be. Zoom's getting more free press than China right now, and about as good and bad. So I can come off a 20-minute to half an hour like face-to-face call with somebody I care about and feel like I just want to hide and fall asleep, versus I can be with my nerds on the D&D group where we're all staring at like a virtual map but never at each other, and I can do that for 3.5 hours, no problemo. So yeah, that's the letter C of isolation for me.
Cuomo and Calls.
All right. Cuomo and Calls. All right. See you soon.
Love you.
Keep it wavy. You know how good it sounds, of course. It sounds exactly as good as my temptation to redo what we just did, but we don't have to do that because that's not the point of this exercise.
No, you just say. You just say.
Yeah, you all learned to turn in at minute 12, right? Well, yeah. If we get through the second half of this with some speed, I can also probably do D if you want to. I don't know. Your call.
I'd rather you use the time to post this one.
Well, okay, that's fine too. I mean, yeah.
Because you know how that goes. It's 4 months later, and you're like,
Well, what do you say, Leah? Now, like the last 2 weeks. It was 2 weeks to record, and we like how it was
This episode of Miracles Manhattan is a co-production of Wild Stories and Rogue Signal Studios. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe on iTunes and leave us a 5-star review and maybe a comment. It takes just a second and it helps us reach a broader audience.
And if you have any questions for us, email us at miraclesinmanhattan@gmail.com. We may be able to answer your question on a future episode. If you want to join our Facebook community where everyone is walking through a Course in Miracles together, you can find us at A Course in Miracles with the Wild Reverend. And you can also find us on Twitter at Wild Manhattan.